Happy Easter to everyone. I'm Reverend Larry Schellink. I'm privileged to be the partner of Reverend Denese, and delighted to be with you on this Easter Sunday. I love the meditation this morning as it began, the idea we are to fast on doubt and feast on faith, and to fast from fear and feast on courage. I love that. I think, that's where we all want to be. And honestly, we are living in a time right now where this is a challenge for us to be in that consciousness. And I always believe that we don't want to do an end run around the human experience, that we find ourselves where we are and then find our way authentically back into the realization of the truth of us. And so we know that many people right now are challenged by this pandemic, that many people are not having the Easter experience that they would like. They're not necessarily feeling lifted up by the circumstances of their life, and maybe really feeling challenged by what's going on, and just wondering, where is this divine presence in the midst of this situation that has affected millions and billions of people around the globe? This is an unprecedented experience for those of us that even have lived a long life. And times like this, there is often the people ask the question, how do I reconcile the notion that there is a loving God in the midst of this experience, when people are suffering, where people are losing their life, when people are going through difficult situations? How is it that a God that we believe is pure love and is omnipresent and all-knowing and all-powerful would allow this to happen? And so we can easily sink into this sort of logic, this human logic that asks us to make sense out of what's happening vis-a-vis an understanding of our higher power. And so this is the challenge that we have right now. There's always a silver lining, and the silver lining of a time like this is it asks us to go deeper into knowing this reality, this deeper reality, this divine presence, to know it as it truly is, and not to know it through the surface mind that tries to reconcile things that are showing up in our life as evidence of a higher power. We may see the evidence of our faith in form from time to time, but it's so important that we don't base our faith on form, that we don't base our faith in the presence and the power and the love of God based on what we see out in the world. Because as Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world, and do not judge by appearances. And if when we judge by appearances, we try to reconcile what is happening in the world and at the same time hold the notion that there was an all-knowing, all-powerful God, we have a disconnect. We can have a breakdown of our mental, the connection between our mind and our heart. And so I just wanted to share this little piece of the message today to remind you that this is not a head trip. This is, if we get stuck in our head of trying to make sense of this, it will not make sense, and it will keep us out of the heart. And the heart is where we get to make the connection with the divine that can never be separated. Who and what we really are is not a physical being, is not something that gets sick, is not something that suffers. Our essence is spirit itself. It is love itself. It is life that did not begin in a body and will not end when this body experience comes to an end. It's that knowing that this kind of time and this kind of challenge really requires us to go deeper into knowing who and what we are. And so the invitation here on this particular Easter is for us to get to know that quiet essence of our own being, where we live and move and have our being in God as the presence and the power and the love that we truly are. And so now we're going to have a little clip here. Some of our Unity ministers across the globe have sharing their reflections on the idea of releasing, reflecting, and rising up. Enjoy this.
The greatest things that we can personally release are fear, separation, and lack. As we release these things from our consciousness, the entire world will rise up a little higher.
I've been releasing ideas about parenthood. My son went to college this year and he was the youngest. So parenting completely changes now. And I've been releasing ideas about what I thought it looked like and what it does look like.
Release self-doubt and embrace a greater love.
Let us release any and everything that limits the fullness of the divinity that we are. If it is not rooted in love, let it go.
Any belief in separation from our true essence, from our divine awareness, God, self, Christ consciousness, whatever name we give to it.
Lay it on the altar of your heart and let go and allow God to unfold good.
And we can also ask, is this something I need to be in relationship with in a different way? It's a good insight to help us recognize when we need to release something.
We are releasing all the old worn-out stories. We're letting go of anything that grows between our heart, ourselves, and the world.
The thinking that you are not enough, not smart enough, not strong enough, not rich enough, not famous enough, not blank enough. Because the truth of who you are is enough.
I release fear and I release doubt.
Fear creates resistance, and resistance creates a vibrational energy that holds us stuck in status quo. Yes, it is time to let that go.
When I stand in the truth of my oneness, I bravely release my imaginary cloak of fear and uncertainty. I let go of my limitations with the ease that a candle uses to dispel the darkness.
A time of reflection offers us an opportunity to step out of the ordinary, normal, habitual ways that we have been living our lives so that we can find something different, something new.
A time of reflection gives us an opportunity to pause and listen to our inner guidance.
Creating our lives through our way of thinking, feeling, and doing by focusing on the good.
I touch the space where I can more fully know the truth about creation and Creator.
When we take time for inner reflection, mixed with a healthy dose of self-compassion, we can become conscious of any limiting beliefs that have been blocking our growth and evolution.
I have discovered resentments I didn't know that I was holding on to, and insights that would have never come to me if I hadn't taken time to just turn off the busy hustle bustle of the day.
When we get quiet enough, dropping beneath the noise of the mind and the universe, we access both a deep and ancient wisdom.
It also helps make us more self-aware and more in tune with the divine rhythm and flow of life.
It's a time that allows us to connect with Source and reminds us of the truth of who and what we are, divinity in skin.
We are rising up into a new reality, a new way to connect with each other, heart to heart.
Purity. Oneness with all of creation.
Curiosity.
The kingdom of God.
A culture of peace.
Spiritual harmony.
Expanded consciousness.
Greater expression of who we've come here to be.
Higher awareness of our interconnectedness.
Divine potential.
Our authentic selves.
I rise up to magnificence.
Magnificence!
The birth of a new humanity.
I am rising into possibility.
Possibility.
We are rising up to the transmutation of the old and the transformation of the new.
Courage.
Self-empowerment.
Rise up as God.
The joy of community. The joy of unity.
So beautiful. I want to thank my colleagues around the world that created that. So beautiful. We'll have that posted on our Facebook page so that you can look at that again. So beautiful and brilliant. Thank you, my beautiful
partner, Reverend Larry, for joining us this morning. And I'm just so in love with this room. That's why I'm smiling bigger today than I was last week, because of you. So, last week we talked about being on a hero's journey, that we are each here for a divine calling. And that's what this Holy Week's been about, to remember who and what we are. We are a divine being. So that little video is about what we will release. What will we release and make room for so we can have that transformation? I hope you answered some of the questions while they were talking. And then what are you reflecting on? We want to pause, and we want to listen to the internal voice in us, that our good, our wisdom doesn't necessarily come from out here, that there's an internal life force in us that we want to move into. I believe that we can use this pandemic, this very devastating moment in the crises of humanity, to awaken to who and what we are. That you and I were called to be here in this time frame, the first time it's really ever happened in this depth globally. And there's something here for us. I know that. I know that for me, and I know that for you as well. And maybe we're in the midst of a major crisis, but we're also in the midst of an opportunity. There's always the polarities that take place. So we want to be able to embrace the humanity, embrace our human, but we also want to express the divine. That's the journey. We want to embrace our humanity, but express our divine self. So we created this world, you and I. We co-created this world that we are living in right now through our conscious thinking and our way of being. So we can change what's not working. This could be our opportunity as things begin to crumble, that we make new choices about inequalities. We make new choices about what we value in our world. We make new choices maybe about a new social transformation in our world. What kind of world do we want? You and I get to make that choice again. We are now secluded in our homes, most of us, and doing very little walking around in the world. And there's so much time now to be inwardly, to go inward, to ask these deeper questions. And what I know is that we are all in this together, all of us. It matters not what faith you are, what country you live in, that this pandemic, this virus spreads throughout. We are all affected, and we have all can answer the call to say, yes, Lord, use me. Use me in a magnificent way that uses this pandemic, this virus, fills it with spiritual teachings, fills it with an antibody that is injected into the world to have a spiritual awakening. That's how we can use it. We can rewire. We can create new skills with all of us, that it's not going to go back to the same way it was. And yes, we can grieve that. We're going to hospice the old world and midwife anew, bringing in a new humanity. So that's what the resurrection can be, is the crossing out of when we had forgotten who we are, that we built monuments or we built corporations in favor of profits over human suffering. So it is our turn to recreate and co-create a world that works for all. We are all in this together. So let us surrender to a higher presence. Let us surrender and know that we are all rising in love. Rising in love, because love is the only thing that we're really made of. We are made in the image and likeness of God, image and likeness of spirit. We are not bodies. So Jesus entered into the crucifixion experience to show that the body is not the end of life. Nothing, including death, can separate us from the truth of our being. Nothing can diminish us if we know whose and what we are. Life has no opposite. The opposite of death is not life, it is birth. So we are rising in love. Rising in love today. That's what we're doing. And so we are awakening to the Christ consciousness. Again and again, we utilize this Easter holiday to remember that truth. So the crucifixion is to die to the old, die to the small self, the egoic self, the one who feels separate. The resurrection is to awaken to everything that is possible in this experience, in this embodiment that we have all been given. So when Jesus was crucified, what he was doing was crucifying the old thought form, the old way of separation, and rebirthing into our oneness. He rose again from the dead so that we could awaken to that Christ consciousness. But we're still here. We are still here awakening, and there's an evolution, yes? There's an evolution that's happening, and we don't get it in one fell swoop. You and I, that there's this human experience that happens, and we sort of forget who we are, and then we have these beautiful practices that remind us to come back to the meditation mat, come back to the truth of our being. Jesus said, very truly, you are the light of the world. He said, a city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one puts a light under a bushel, but a basket on a lampstand. It gives it the light to the house, the same as your light shines for others. You are the light of the world. Use this light. You and I want to use this light to express and expand. That's what this time is for, an expansion of the true nature of our being. There's a lot of us that are wanting to stand in to be courageous, courageous enough to step out and be that living Christ. But we need to let go of our limitations. Let go of those thought forms that keep us stuck in an old idea that we are just this human being struggling and suffering. So the world needs your light. The world needs your gift. The world needs your passion and your faith, mostly. There is a guiding force that is always present within you and within me, and it is filled with wisdom and courage and strength. And that's what you and I are tapping into now in this very difficult time. Easter also reminds me of the cross. Today I bring out my cross. I don't wear it very often, but it's the symbol, rather than the symbol of the crucifixion. I see the cross as a symbol of the balanced cross. This is the symbol of where we intersect. That is, that we have this infinite wisdom of all life. There's the vertical awareness of all that is. We are aligned with this total absolute truth, and that it is sourcing us at every given moment into this world. And the more we align with that, the more we know truth. But we're also here as a human being, so there's the horizontal experience as well, living in the world, but not of the world, living in the world, being present to what is, being present to what is, and aligned with the divine. And in the intersection of that is the heart. This is the Christ experience. This is the infinite indwelling. This is what the balanced cross is to me. is that that's what I'm here to do. That I am here to take on the infinite wisdom of the divine in this horizontal world we call Earth living. That's our work, is to express and embrace our humanity and express our divinity. We are centered in God when we align with this presence and power. And we awaken to a love without conditions and a life without end. That's what we're here for. Jesus' real purpose in this sacrifice was to wager his own life against his core conviction, which was that love is stronger than death, and that the laying down of the egoic self leads not to death, but to life everlasting, to a life well lived. Jesus was not about proving that a body lives forever, but rather that the spiritual identity survives the grave. The spiritual identity survives the grave and can never be taken from us. That we are made in the image and likeness of God. That this body is a beautiful suit of armor that we wear, that we use, that anchors us in this world with this gravity to be the expression of the divine. It is not who and what we are. So we are rising in love, you and I, everyone here. Rising in love because that's what you are. That's what we're made for. That's what this incarnation is for, is to love more deeply. I am so grateful and blessed to be with you in this time on earth. We didn't know that when we signed up this contract that this would happen, right? It was like, that didn't show up, right? But love did. Because you and I have a calling. You and I have been called to be the ones, to be the guiding force through this experience. Because God already knows how this ends. And something magnificent wants to happen through you and I. So let's pray. Beloved presence, we are so grateful for this Easter time, this time of renewal, this dawning of hope and promise that the dark night is over, the light is restored. And so it is when we experience the dawning of the Christ light that comes with every resurrection. The resurrection is not an isolated historical event. It's rather the remembrance of the Christ potential. So today we rise into love. I am the light of the world, Jesus said. I am the light of the world. So we dedicate this Easter service as an offering to the living Christ in us. That there are lights of a million mornings waiting to be vibrantly expressed. We breathe in this new life and this new light and this magnificence that is surrounding each of us in this sunrise experience. Something magnificent is dawning now. Wake up. Wake up.